Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. It's Friday, March 9th, and it feels like February again. If you go back and listen to episodes from a couple weeks ago when I was saying how nice it was still hat and glove weather, but felt warmer. That's the kind of day it is today. It's morning, to be fair, it's morning. I'm walking home from taking the kids to school, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about games with you today. I was thinking about a couple related phenomena that I wanted to share. One of them comes from, I know you're going to be surprised, a conversation on Board Game Geek that people were having about trades. So if you haven't traded games on Board Game Geek, lots of cars. If you haven't traded games on Board Game Geek, this is kind of how it works. There's an area called Trades, and you put a game up that you'd like to trade, or you mark games in your collection like for trade or want in trade. And then people are able to search for people who have games to trade or want to trade games, and then you can try to make a deal to trade those games. Now, my experience with trading has been limited. I've done it a couple times, but honestly, most of the time I find that games I actually want, I can't get with games I want to give away, and a game that I'm willing to take in exchange for a game I'm giving away generally isn't really a game I want to pay $15 for, which is kind of what you have to spend to ship a game. Now, to be fair, the math on shipping a game, or the math on trades, changes dramatically if you're participating in a no-ship trade. For instance, I participated in the no-ship math trade at Origins last year, and I gave away 8 games I didn't really want anymore in exchange for games I thought looked kind of neat. And even if they didn't look that great, I didn't pay anything for them. I'm just getting rid of games I don't want anyway. So I was actually able to get a few games that I really like, a few games I haven't tried yet, and so I think that's where trades really work for me, is when it literally is, I hand you a game, you hand me a game, and we're both happy. Or in a math trade, I hand Bob a game, Bob hands Chris a game, Chris hands Dave a game, Dave hands me a game. I like those better. But when shipping is involved, the math gets all wonky, because paying to ship a game is actually kind of expensive. And usually, I bought a lot of games for less than it costs to ship a game. Especially with Amazon Prime really throwing the numbers off. So I've moved away from trading games on Board Game Geek and moved towards selling them. And the selling and buying works a little differently. But the complaint that came from this conversation was about trades. And somebody basically said, I'm making these trade offers and nobody responds. What the heck? Well, some of their advice was pretty good. It was sort of like, did you inquire first or did you just hit trade? And some of the other advice actually is something that I've seen in other places talking about this phenomenon, which is maybe your trades are crap and people won't respond if you're making an insulting offer. So this is what I find particularly interesting. The premise of trades is generally, I give you a game, you give me a game. But often in reality, people want to get a good deal out of a trade. I want to give you $20 copy of Cards Against Humanity, and you give me Kingdom Death Monster or something. The idea is that people often in the trade market, when they're making trades, they're trying to get a good deal out of people. Say two or three games in exchange for one. And a lot of people who are doing trades are trying to do that. But a lot of other people just I have this game I want to get rid of, I'd like to get a game for it. They don't really like the idea of having to put money values on the trades. Why not just sell the game if you're doing that? So that's one phenomenon, this idea that we value the things we have more than the things other people have. It ties also to the way that people tend to rate board game Kickstarters. There was an interesting conversation on Ludology last week about the fact that there are a number of Kickstarters that are extremely highly rated. And I think it was Gil who said something to the effect of, part of that is because people who have a Kickstarter, who bought it, they kind of buy into the story of it and they buy into the idea of it. And so then they rate it highly because they're predisposed to like it because they've already sort of mentally bought in. And I think that's true to a degree. I certainly have gotten Kickstarters where I played them and I was sort of like, this is not as good as I was hoping. On the other hand, I've been surprised. We talked about that last week, I think. But Kickstarter shows the same phenomenon, this idea of overvaluing the things we have in exchange for the things we want. I think we see this also in trading games. When you have a thing, when you're trying to trade with somebody for a particular thing, you value the thing you have more than other people would value it. I was also thinking about this in context of actual real estate. That real estate tends to be, our value of real estate varies widely. That it seems like the common story that real estate agents have, or people, is that houses are overpriced, right? People making offers make offers that are significantly lower than what the person who wanted to sell the house wants to sell it for. And part of that is that the people buying it don't see it as all that great. They see it as excellent, they want it, but you're asking too much. Like I said, there are auction games or other games involving market manipulation that take advantage of this. But it seems like a lot of games, that's the very nature of what's happening in the economy of the game, is judging the value of a thing that you're doing in order to assess how valuable it is to your end strategy. I was thinking about this in the context of the game Ex Libris. Ex Libris is a game from Renegade Studios. I think Adam McIver is the designer. And it's a game about being a librarian, about working in the efforts of the city to try to figure out how to build the best collection of old and arcane books so that you can be the official city librarian, I guess when the old one retires or something. It's a really fun game. I like it a lot, and it's mostly set collection with some worker placement to drive the actions of the set collection. There's a variety of locations that come out that do all sorts of different things, and you use your workers to gather up books of cards of books, and then you play those onto your shelf. The tricky thing is that your shelf has to be alphabetized, and you're not allowed to move the books for the most part after you put them on the shelf. So there's an element of when do I get rid of the thing I have, or when do I shelve the thing I have, as opposed to trying to gather more, because the game runs out once somebody's built a certain amount of things. And I have trouble with this game because I don't score very high. In fact, I've played it 5 times now, and I just last night won my first round of it. And basically I won by telling myself that I had to shelve things as often as possible. And that if I was taking an action that allowed me to shelve things, I really should focus on actually doing that shelving if I could. Because I think the place where I have erred before in playing that game is in overvaluing the stuff I have in my hand. And actually overvaluing the potential for the things I have. I would have 2 or 3 cards. They'd be spread out. So you put these shelves together and you're allowed to have a maximum of 3 shelves. So I tend to think of it in terms of 3 shelves and break the alphabet into thirds. So if at the beginning of the game I don't get any cards for books in the middle part of the alphabet, then it's really hard to shelve the top part of the alphabet because I don't have a good way I can't move them once I've shelved them. That you're limited in what you can put on the shelf. So this time around, what I played is I tried to take the attitude of the book in my hand is worth nothing until it's on the shelf. And the thing I should prioritize, or the value that I should assign to it, is the value of getting it played. And it ended up winning. According to Board Game Stats, I have the lowest winning score of our 5 games of Ex Libris. So if you put all 5 games of Ex Libris next to each other and look at the person who won, look at their score, my score is the worst of the winner scores. But a big part of the emotion that I got from the other players is that I closed the game down a turn or two before they were ready to. And as a result, my score was significantly higher because I was ready to end the game and they weren't quite ready yet. I was thinking about this in terms of selling my games as well. Once I've decided to sell a game, I start to get pretty mercenary about the price. Or I guess anti-mercenary? I start to get pretty loose about the price. I start to think, I don't want this anymore, so I'm going to try to get rid of it. I'd like to get some money, but I don't need much. And so often, like I mentioned on another day, I'll look at the prices on Board Game Geek and I'll reduce it by 20%. Now, I have found this one service, it's called Cheap Cheap, where they will buy your games, and they actually give you a pretty good price for them, but the trick is that you end up paying for shipping. So I think in the end, I'm not going to get much more than I would have if I'd sold them on Board Game Geek. But I get something, and on Board Game Geek, the games are just sitting there. So we'll see. I'll let you know if that goes badly. So the other thing you want to think about when you're trying to value something that you have would be to think about what is the value it has to other people and how can you get them to perceive the value higher. Auctions are a way to do that, right? An auction is a way to get people enthusiastic about something and maybe drive the price up a little bit because once they've decided they want it, then they'll come back and try to get it. Recently, I've watched an interesting interaction. Again, I'll be able to report next week, but I had some old BattleTech stuff in my collection. A box from the BattleTech game, the original rule book, an updated, like a splat book with a whole bunch of extra readouts and stuff, some maps and some sheets for recording whatever it hits. But I didn't have any models, so it's not much of a BattleTech set. I mean, if you're going to buy the game, you need the little models, and that's the most fun, I suspect. But anyway, so I didn't want to throw it away, and I didn't want to give it to, Goodwill or something, because I just felt like it was not going to it wouldn't go to somebody in the hobby or somebody who loved it. So I decided to make an auction for it. And what I did is I said the auction was the first bid would be $0 plus shipping. So if you pay for shipping, and I'll ship it at priority rate, whatever the lowest shipping rate I can find is that's going to, allow me to guarantee it gets there, then you can have it for $0 unless someone else outbids you. And last time I looked, the bid was up to $15. And I'm pretty sure, if I had put it online for $5 or $10 in the geek store, no one would have bought it. In fact, there was somebody else who was looking for BattleTech stuff. This was months ago, and I said, hey, I've got this stuff. If you want to pay for shipping, you can have it. And they never replied to me. So I'm not sure what lesson to take from that. And as I think about designing a board game, how do you make things look interesting? And is there a value in designing a game to making things look good, but actually not be worth as much? I know in Netrunner, for instance, there are a lot of cards that seem like they'd be good, but then when you evaluate them carefully, it turns out they're tricking you. They're like a butterfly. They look like something else. They're not as good as you think they'd be from reading them. And I think that's the case with pricing things when you're buying a game or buying a house or buying things in a game. You really want to think about what is the value of that thing to you and recognize that economy aside, if that thing doesn't help you, it's probably not worth as much as you might imagine it is. So that was very rambling and I didn't get to my second topic, but there it is for the day. Hopefully it was a sort of interesting Friday for you, and let me know what you think. You can reach me, Brendan, at Rattlebox Games, or tweet at me at Rattlebox Games. You can find the show notes for this podcast on our website, rattleboxgames.com. And okay, thanks for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.